In between minions and monsters are over 24 hidden details that you had no idea were in this hour-and-a-half masterpiece. From details about cinema history to the truth about why they never take their glasses off and who the real bad guy of this movie really was. Welcome to Minionaire. You won't come across a channel more minion than this. So hit that subscribe button and enjoy the most minion content you'll come across. Now let's jump right into it. Now in this super brief scene right here, we catch wind of the fact that our favorite minions have been far east as well. As far as China is concerned, to be exact. We see them clearing the way while humans carry an emperor. As far as Chinese history is concerned, the most famous Chinese emperor to ever live would be Emperor Qin. He lived from 259 BC to 210 BC. He was quite the conqueror. In fact, the Asian Napoleon before Napoleon even was a thing. So the minions working under him sure check out, especially when he wants to conquer most of what would later be known as modern-day China. Now we also get to see the minions work for another person, which makes you fume in anger. Not because it doesn't make any logical sense, but why on earth did we have to wait for 3 movies before we got the minions working for a pirate? It makes so much sense that they would. Pirates aren't just evil, but their evil comes with the type of chaos that you just know minions are built for. I mean, just take a look. Do these look like they don't belong here or something? They honestly feel and look like they belong here. The only issue is that they sadly took out their captain. This is a bummer, but we really can't even act as if we're surprised or anything. They have literally been doing this to everybody that they have worked with. So as upset as we are that we didn't get more scenes of the minions as pirates, we should still be grateful that we even got them as pirates in the first place. At this point, I also think that Illumination might even run out of historical villains or bad guys to use. We'll have to watch out for another Minions movie to find out and be sure. You think that when minions lose their masters is the only time we see the minions jobless? Well, apparently not. In this scene here, where we see the minions leave the studio, it's not because they've lost another monster. It's because they're simply out of work. Remember, this movie takes place in the late 1920s. Now, this is a very pivotal moment in the history of cinema. You see, technology was improving in every part of human life. That included movie making as well. And that was a good thing unless you were a silent film actor, because now audio was a part of the film, and that meant dialogue. And you know that the minions can't make a full sentence in English to save their lives. Animated and exaggerated drama is where they truly thrive, as you can see how they nail their role in that scene where they have to fight off a bunch of Vikings. Even when Henry starred in that black and white film where he acted as a detective, all he used to communicate to us was his body language and nothing more. If the whole movie had hinged on him talking, trust me, it would have had a rating worse than the worst movie you know. So this scene right here, blame it on the minions not knowing how to speak one language at a time. Yep, that's right, I said one language at a time. That's because Minionese isn't one language on its own. It's really just the minions combining different languages to have their own. So aside from short bursts of words, when they try to say a sentence, it's really just them combining words from French, Italian, Filipino, and even German and mixing everything. Now the crazy part is, they've been speaking this language before humans could properly talk with each other. So does that mean that all the different languages we know are all thanks to the minions? Well, we'll need more clarification in future movies, especially from Pierre Coffin. Did you know he's also the one who does the voice of the minions? Yup, every single one of them. That's how talented they are. And I don't think they're going to learn a language anytime soon. Personally, I don't even want to see them speak anything aside from the gibberish I know them for and love. Now at the very start of the movie, we see the flick of this horse. It seems like a mediocre piece of animation, but it really isn't. This was one of the first pieces of films to ever be recorded. It depicts the side profile of a horse galloping. This allowed people to relive the gracious movements of the horse and watch it so slowly and focus every fine detail about its movement, including how at one point, all 4 feet of the horse leave the ground. This really puts the motion in motion picture. The cabinet cards were made by Edward Muybridge in the year 1878, which is over 40 years before this film is set, which is historically accurate because this piece of media is what actually led the way for films to be captured. And if you're wondering why animations are done at 24 frames per second, it's because there were 24 cabinet cards, each representing a different phase of motion. Who needs a documentary on the history of film when you can just watch Minions and Monsters and be a history expert? If you know anything about the Minions, it's the fact that this movie likes inserting itself as part of human history. Now, Charlie Chaplin, the great pioneer of silent movies. But with no mention of him here, it's believed that in this world, the Minions, they are the ones who had Charlie's role of making silent films popular. Just imagine them as the Brad Pitts and Tom Cruise of their era. I mean, rewriting history is really what the Minions do best. We can blame them for the downfall of one of history's greatest military generals and setting back evolution by quite a bit after their reckless behavior during the Jurassic era and the Stone Age. And do I need to mention the whole fiasco with the pyramids? They're probably so decided to make the Oscar award even look like a
you
mini
are
Minion.
not from around these parts,
That's how
are
big
you?
of a deal they are to the film world in this movie. I mean, they are the ones that gave Hollywood the idea about kaijus in the first place. Now, not only did the movie talk about the use of kaijus in this movie, but the movie that the Minions made in this one with the giant monster might have been what inspired people to start making monster movies. The first Godzilla movie came out in the 1950s, which means that the Minions theoretically came up with the entire monster genre. Think about it. This movie is set in the late 20s. Godzilla made his debut an entire 3 decades later. So who do you think paved the way for it, if not the Minions? These dudes can't stop paving the way for cinema, can they? And it's so interesting that they were specifically looking for a kaiju monster when Hollywood didn't even know what giant monsters looking like on the big screen. Well, if you're curious to know where Gumi, Irene, and the other 2 monsters came from, the truth is, they were actually trapped by the warlocks that the Minions once served at a point in time, and they were kept in an extra-dimensional prison realm. Now, the monsters clearly were too much stress for the warlock to handle, so he placed them there and, surprise, surprise, the instant one of them accidentally escaped, they were enraged at the fact that the warlock had basically done them dirty and just shoved them to the side, which was their motive for attacking and doing away with him. To be fair, they are monsters, so that is how they would behave while getting revenge. Now talk about the devil. Get it? Monster, devil. Anyway, talking about the monsters, how did the Minions end up serving a Cyclops? Well, the movie kinda made it obvious that, alright, yeah, magic does exist, so there's no logical reason Greek gods wouldn't exist either. And if they do exist, surely they would have been serving Hades instead of a Cyclops freak. Now you'd wonder, did the fact that this is the only evil being that has one eye make the Minions levitate towards him? However you see it, this is a movie about monsters, and you could say the directors and writers wanted to really cement the theme of monsters by making the Minions serve one. This is not a secret. You know what happens to a master of the Minions when they serve one for a long period of time. In their mindless devotion, they usually end up bringing a rather foreseen end to their master. The whole Lego thing being the reason he's unalived is hilarious because this is the exact egregious reaction humans have to stepping on a Lego. Now, this is the first time we see the Minions serve a master who was a textbook monster villain. And I'm referring to the Cyclops that we see serving at the beginning of the movie. The name of this movie is Minions and Monsters after all, so it's only right that we get to see them serve a literal monster. But my only problem with this whole setup is, how exactly is a Cyclops supposed to give orders to the Minions? Are the little yellow dudes suddenly fluent in grunting? I understand that they need to serve the most evil person they can find, but I think they should start making it a thing to check for IQ as well. Because this dude saw a block of Legos and the first thing that came to his mind was to step on it? I really don't feel sorry for him and his tragic fall down the stairs. I bet you've wondered why Irene isn't just a big yellow blob covered in eyeballs. The answer? It's in the book used to summon her. Because we know Cthulhu was brought from a different dimension, that implies the other monsters were too. And if there are monsters from other dimensions, there might be minions out there from other dimensions as well. But Irene's dimension may not have any minions because Irene is the minion. I mean, in a dark reality, minions could have been experimented on, fused, and mutated to form a horrific mass of yellow jelly. Originally, when Irene was brought to this world, she didn't just go around causing random chaos. She was trying to carry out the final instruction of her multi-dimensional master, which was total destruction. The first Minions movie kind of foreshadowed the theatrical misadventures that go on in this movie. Remember when Kevin, Bob, and Stuart came across a movie set that was trying to shoot a scene of astronauts landing on the moon? It was literally one of the first things that they came across while they were in New York. It's just incredible how, if there were just one person who overthought this moment right here and felt that a Minions movie about cinema was brewing, they wouldn't be wrong. Let's keep things real. These minions are practically indestructible. They can blow up, fall from heights, get real damage that would kill you in Minecraft, but they somehow end up alive. I mean, the type of accidents that they endure and just brush up is truly astounding. We've seen them brush off rocket explosions. Sure, they have scruff marks, but they never actually come out of these situations hurt. It's like they just wipe off the dirt and carry on with life. Think about it. You've never really seen a doctor patching up these minions, and even if they needed medical attention, you'd need more than 6 years to understand their physiology. Honestly, I don't know if I should call the minions clones or twins. Well, to be honest, they're not all identical since you can actually physically distinguish them. I wouldn't be wrong to call them really close siblings. But here's something that you wouldn't realize until you really thought about it. They may have slightly unique features, but the minions aren't all equal in intelligence, creative, and show of emotions. Sure, most of them are really goofy, but not all of them show the same level of silliness. I mean, you really can't call Henry a goofball. This dude was literally out here making Legos and dreaming about being a movie director. This is also something that we've actually seen in previous movies as well. When Stuart, Bob, and Kevin were in New York, the whole idea of disguising themselves and blending in was Stuart's plan. And sometimes it takes more than brains to get out of a sticky situation. And we see Bob display something that even Kevin and Stuart don't: the ability to emotionally bond with people around him. I mean, this dude was literally on the verge of being the first non-human British Prime Minister. And when he befriended the guard dog to get out of the mess they were in, he was tapping into his emotional empathy tank, something that not every minion would have been able to do. So yeah, minions are closely related, but not equal in brain power. At this absolute point in the lore, I'm convinced there isn't a single ecosystem in the entire universe that can actually kill a minion. I mean, just look at this ridiculous sequence right here where James and Ed literally dive headfirst into Irene. Now, Irene is basically a giant living blob of sentient jelly. By all known laws of biology, trying to breathe while completely submerged inside a giant mass of gelatinous goo should be a one-way ticket to suffocation. But nope. Look at their faces. These dudes are literally smiling and giggling like they're at a water park instead of facing an existential crisis. But honestly, why are we even surprised? We've seen these yellow menaces survive infinitely worse. If you freeze frame right here, the movie casually shows the minions vibing out in the literal vacuum of space. No helmets, no spacesuits, absolutely zero thermal insulation against freezing temperatures. Now, I won't bore you with a whole scientific breakdown of cosmic radiation or how their lungs should have immediately exploded from the lack of atmospheric pressure. But once again, they aren't even struggling. No gasping for air, no panic, they're just drifting through the cosmos like the completely unbothered, chaotic little rascals they are. Now, have you ever actually stopped to think about the tragic paradox of the minions' entire existence? Like, why are they constantly stuck in this endless cycle of hunting for a brand new master? Logically speaking, it makes sense that they need a backup plan since their immortal bodies are always going to outlive whoever they're currently serving. But here lies the absolute peak irony of the entire franchise. They don't just outlive their masters, they are literally the walking kiss of death. Every single time a villain takes them in, the minions accidentally orchestrate their absolute demise. Just look at their track record. Back when they were serving the T-Rex, one of these yellow menaces casually rolls a boulder right under its foot, sending history's ultimate apex predator skating directly into a volcano. They literally single-handedly kickstarted extinction before the asteroid even had a chance. Then they move on to a caveman, and their brilliant idea of a weapon? A fly swatter. Let's just say there is a very specific reason it's called a fly swatter and not a grizzly bear slapper. I honestly love how the animators completely cut away from the aftermath here, because trust me, absolutely nobody in human history is surviving a head-on boxing match with a provoked bear. Next up, they serve a pharaoh, and these absolute numbskulls literally build a pyramid backwards and bury the poor guy alive under tons of solid limestone. But okay, what about Dracula? Honestly, I'm stepping in to defend them on this one. Cut them a little bit of slack here. How on earth were they supposed to know that Mr. Fangs was fatally allergic to a little bit of morning sunlight? If they had known, they probably would have gone ahead and invented SPF 5000 sunscreen for their dear master, instead of accidentally turning him into a pile of ash. And finally, Napoleon? They literally blast a legendary French general out of a cannon and make him go completely kaboom. I guess at the end of the day, having a short temper and an even shorter stature didn't do anyone any favors. Now, what I'm really curious about is, do their mouths have two functions, breathing and eating? Or is it really only used for talking and eating? I mean, we've seen them launch into the upper atmosphere and space without helmets and act like nothing's happening, as if it's just another Tuesday experiencing zero gravity. Now, in this movie, Henry and Ed are wound up inside Irene, where we can see them still going about things like breathing isn't a part of their physiology. I mean, we even catch Ed having a laugh and try to talk to Henry. Do they forget to breathe? Do they just not breathe? You would think that's the case, but they don't even puff their cheeks out. So that means that they aren't holding in air. If that's not the case, then, you know what? Somebody get a surgeon. We need to cut these little rascals up and see just how they tick. One of the most profound truths of the Despicable Me cinematic universe is that even after Gru traded his supervillain license for suburban dad energy, the Minions didn't hit him with the "it's not you, it's me" text. They stayed. This always made Gru feel like a uniquely chosen protagonist, but after sitting through Minions and Monsters, I realized Gru isn't actually the first master to retain custody of these yellow chaos potatoes after going soft. Enter Dort. Dort low-key could have kept the Minions permanently if he wasn't so busy being an absolute lover bot. The Minions unironically adored him, and honestly, I don't think they would have accidentally caused Dort to short circuit and explode the way they did their previous, less fortunate bosses. It's a literal crime we didn't get more on-screen Dort and Minion chemistry, all because this robot was down horrendously for a human. Like, when did AI first start falling head over heels for organic life forms anyway? This is the 19th, 20th century we're talking about, for crying out loud. Go download a software update or something. Remember that scene where Max tells the Minions to act in a sequence where they fight a horde of Vikings? Yeah, well, the Minions genuinely thought Max was a high-tier evil commander issuing tactical warfare orders. Just look at the sheer, unbridled savagery with which they were clobbering those actors. They had absolutely zero clue they were on a movie set. Maybe the Vikings' terrifying, unwashed aesthetic triggered their survival instincts and made them think their tiny lives were on the line. And look, if you ever want to see a Minion seriously throw hands, just corner one. There's a very valid evolutionary reason why these Tic Tacs have survived since the dawn of time. Bottom line, these dudes were not acting. They were fighting for their lives. The only one who might have had a single solitary brain cell spark a hint that this wasn't a real war was Dick. Why? Because the rest of the Minion battalion literally charged into battle and left him eating dust. Then again, on second thought, Dick was probably just completely oblivious to reality. He doesn't exactly scream high IQ. We now know the Minions are split into two distinct factions. The million-dollar question is, when did this yellow divorce actually happen? The most logical hypothesis points to the immediate aftermath of Napoleon's historic fail. While one group decided to mope in an ice cave, another fraction probably thought, yeah, Napoleon just blew up his own army, but we're not letting the demise of one short king stop us from finding another. That's remarkably resilient, but guys, please think about your life choices for 5 seconds. Being exiled in an ice cave was low-key the best mental health break they ever had. They desperately needed an intervention. But since we know some minions were still roaming the earth, it proves they weren't all Team Napoleon. When they were hanging out with the Cyclops, there was a distinct lack of Kevin, Bob, or Stuart energy. They straight up weren't there, which drags us back to the timeline of the split. Were these two groups living separate lives until they finally reunited under Gru's banner? Now, if you blink during the prequels, you will completely miss a massive psychological shift. Kevin, Stuart, and Bob treat Gru entirely differently than every other master they've ever served over the span of millions of years. Historically, minions treated their masters like a temporary gig. Sure, they're loyal on the clock, but it's heavily giving, "I'm just here so I don't get fined, bro." They follow orders, celebrate the W's, and the exact millisecond their master dies a horrible death, they're filling out job applications for the next guy. It was a purely transactional, robotic cycle, until they met Gru. With Gru, they threw out the entire corporate handbook. Kevin literally became Gru's unpaid, self-appointed bodyguard, constantly monitoring him and keeping him safe when literally nobody asked him to. They even agreed to work for no pay at all when the Villain League pulled Gru's funding in Despicable Me. The minions are emotionally hyper-invested in Gru, and nobody forced them into this. It's pure, unadulterated devotion. At the climax of the rise of Gru, Kevin, Stuart, and Bob aren't just clocking into a job. They finally found a master they genuinely love. Let's be real, this entire cinematic disaster could have been entirely avoided if the minions had exercised even an ounce of situational awareness the moment the magic spell was cast to summon Cthulhu. The sheer disappointment radiating from them when Cthulhu couldn't star in their indie film was palpable. But hey, at least the cosmic horror entity hooked them up with a backup monster. But here is the glaring issue. These absolute clowns genuinely heard this entity add the word deceiver to his actual name, and not a single one of them flagged that as a red flag? Henry and Ed were undeniably desperate to cast a monster for their film, but come on guys, use your critical thinking skills. Though technically, they did get exactly what they bargained for, so bravo, I guess? Enjoy the chaos. Apparently, the Minions have been dying to make a movie for like, what, 200 years? In it, we meet this one specific Minion stuck in Greece who is a total outcast from the group, but he's obsessed with the arts. Theater, drama, aesthetic, he's all in. And out of all the geographical locations available, Greece was absolutely not an accident. Time for a brief history lesson. Modern cinema owes ancient Greece lunch money. The entire backbone of narrative storytelling traces back to them. Half the tropes we take for granted today, satire, hubris, tragic downfalls, dramatic plot twists, are just Greek concepts we keep plagiarizing and calling original. The writers weren't just throwing darts at a map. The Greek theme was a highly intellectual flex. And honestly, Greek mythology has been quietly running Hollywood for decades. Teenage demigods running around with swords, Disney turning Zeus into a wholesome cartoon dad, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson flexing his traps as Hercules. It's everywhere once you actually pay attention. Now here's a theory that will absolutely make your skin crawl. There is a deeply disturbing reason why Irene isn't just massive and yellow, but covered in eyes. The answer is hidden in the dark grimoire used to summon her. Cthulhu was pulled from another dimension, which implies the other monsters were too. If interdimensional monsters exist, it logically follows that alternate dimensions exist, and the dimension Irene originated from might have been completely devoid of minions. Why? Because Irene is the minion. The theory: in a twisted cosmic horror fate, an alternate universe population of minions was experimented on, melted down, and fused into a singular, giant, multi-eyed mass of yellow jelly. When she crossed over into this world, she was simply trying to finish the directive her interdimensional master gave her: total global annihilation. It's kind of cringe how Cthulhu tried to take credit for her work, to be honest. The timeline of these yellow tater tots is absurd. No matter what era of human history you look at, you will find a minion ruining it. We know they helped Napoleon fight his wars over 300 years ago, long before Gru or his grandparents were even a thought in the universe. Then we go further back to Count Dracula during the Dark Ages. Then we warp back to ancient Egypt, centuries BC. Yet, as ancient as Egypt is, that doesn't even cover 10% of their Earth residency. They kicked it with cavemen and accidentally murdered dinosaurs. We have to rewind the clock to when the Earth only had single-celled microbes and amoebas to see the true origin of minion life. If you want an exact mathematical figure, by the time Minions and Monsters drops, Kevin and his brothers should be celebrating roughly their 4 billionth birthday. Good luck fitting 4 billion candles on a cake without creating a localized fire hazard. Yet, despite being older than the tectonic plates, their core personality traits haven't changed since they developed legs. Naturally, this movie couldn't help but throw in some blatant pop culture references. The first one I spotted instantly was a massive Jaws homage. I mean, come on, was I really supposed to see a giant shark fin in the water and think of the Meg? That would be unhinged. Though that scene did make me uncomfortably curious about what a minion actually tastes like. Like, are they banana flavored? Chewy? We've never actually seen an animal successfully digest one. But trust me, a giant apex predator shark isn't even the most monstrous thing lurking in this movie. Finally, I want to explain why the incantation took place in a restaurant. And we can tell they are in one because the can of food here explicitly reads ravioli. Now, I know the Minions have committed several international crimes over their billions of years on Earth, but Italian culinary arts? I wouldn't put it past them. What makes it incredibly bizarre is that this text appears right while they are actively trying to summon a high-tier demon monster.
I don't know what kind of eldritch horror they're trying to pull from the void, but I am 19% sure a classified Chef Boyardee ravioli recipe isn't the catalyst required to bring the meanest monster to life. If you look closely at the ground right here, you can see actual empty ravioli cans scattered everywhere. Are the Minions seriously going to try to bribe a cosmic deity to star in their indie film using canned Italian pasta? As utterly absurd as that sounds, it is a highly realistic plot point for a Minion movie. Fortunately, this next scene explains exactly why there is a catastrophic amount of canned pasta lying around. Well, this scene just serves as a metaphor. The Minions are trying to get the secret ingredients for the movie that they are technically cooking up. In manning the stove, we got the one and only Henry. There you have it, some incredible hidden details you wouldn't have thought to check out. Was there anything you found out in the movie that's not here yet? Let us know in the comments section and we might include it in our next video. See you next time.